My next dream is to be honored one day for inspiring the next generation of athletes to have a dream, sacrifice for it, and never, ever rest in the middle. Thank you to my wonderful family, my wife, my daughter, Natalia and Gianna, and thank you guys. Thank you.
You're going to show up to play, and you're going to allow the gag through this scrimmage, through this drill. I'm going to beat you. I'm going to let you know I beat you. I'm going to want you to reconsider your professional life choice. You know, and for the most, we'll say, okay, that doesn't make a great teammate. Well, I'm not here to be a great teammate. I'm here to help you win championships. So, well, I mean, here's why practice was important. Not from just the standpoint that I enjoyed playing. Like, I enjoyed being there. I enjoyed getting better. But as a leader of a team, it's also your responsibility to elevate the rest of the guys. And what people tend to get stuck on a lot is saying, okay, the way to make players better is to pass them the ball when they're open. It's a very trivial way to look at things. What you have to do is you have to get them emotionally to want to be better. You have to get them to an emotional space where they wake up every morning driven to be the best version of themselves, right? How do you do that? And in practice, for me, it was a chance to drive them, to challenge them, right? And this is where you have to know your teammates, because if it's late, we just had a back-to-back and we had practice the next day, and you show up, and guys don't feel like going through the motions, don't feel like practicing. It's important to know each and every one of them individually, personally, because then you know what nerve to touch. Some guys, it's like, okay, come on, we can do this. That'll get them going. Other guys, no. You got to figure out what button to push. Powell was always Spain. If I tell them how they lost in a gold medal to us and how they're going to lose again, and how I'm going to beat your ass in practice just like I beat you in a gold medal game, he'd hate that. He'd hate that. But that's what practice was. You have to drive them. You absolutely have to. And if practice is more intense and harder than a Game 7 will be, then a Game 7 will be easy. But if it's not, then that's when teams start folding and capitulating. Here's why practice was important to me. Not from just the standpoint that I enjoyed playing. Like, I enjoyed being there. I enjoyed getting better. But as a leader of a team, it's also your responsibility to elevate the rest of the guys. And what people tend to get stuck on a lot is saying, okay, the way to make players better is to pass them the ball when they're open. That's a very trivial way to look at things. What you have to do is you have to get them emotionally to want to be better. You have to get them to an emotional space where they wake up every morning driven to be the best version of themselves, right? How do you do that? And in practice, for me, it was a chance to drive them, to challenge them, right? And this is where you have to know your teammates, because if it's late, we just had a back-to-back and we had practice the next day, and you show up, and guys don't feel like going through the motions, don't feel like practicing. It's important to know each and every one of them individually, personally, because then you know what nerve to touch. Some guys, it's like, okay, come on, we can do this. That'll get them going. Other guys, no. You got to figure out what button to push. Powell was always Spain. If I tell them how they lost in a gold medal to us and how they're going to lose again, how I'm going to beat your ass in practice just like I beat you in a gold medal game, he'd hate that. He'd hate that. But that's what practice was. You have to drive them. You absolutely have to. And if practice is more intense and harder than a Game 7 will be, then a Game 7 will be easy. But if it's not, then that's when teams start folding and capitulating. When the nominations came out, we were nominated, it was like, that's pretty crazy, it's pretty insane. And then to actually win it, I remember winning and just looking at my wife and going, what the fuck? It's just like, what? Okay, all right, this happened. All right. And I remember after we won it, we got in the car, and it was like a late night, right? So we out hanging out and stuff, and it's like 4 a.m. We're in the car going back, and I look at my wife and I go, now we gotta follow this shit up.
we're going to talk about Granity Studios and what projects you have coming, but you're right, you've set a pretty high bar.
Just a little bit. I mean, I don't know what the hell. You do what with Glenn Keane and John Williams. It's all downhill after that. It's like, but no, it's been a fantastic experience. It's been wonderful. But even more important than that, I got a lot of funny looks my last year when people said, okay, what are you going to do when you retire? And I said, well, I'm going to be a storyteller. Okay, that's cute. What is that? So, well, I tell stories. Okay, all right. But so when you retire, you're going to go through different stages. You're going to be depressed the first week, the second week. And they would tell me this all the time. And so I felt like the nomination was validation that this thing is real. And I can do this. I do have talent other than dribbling and shooting the basketball. I can actually write. Yeah, so I think that was the most important thing.
When we talk about mindset and beliefs, we talk about limiting beliefs as sort of being the ceiling of your potential. How you think about yourself, whether positively or negatively, that's probably what your potential is. How do you stretch your beliefs and make sure you are continually pushing the boundaries of your comfort zone and your capabilities?
I just dream. I have dreams, and dreams they should be pure. I think a lot of times when we're born into this world, we actually wind up going backwards. And it seems like the more we mature, the more responsible our dreams become, and the more governors we put on ourselves and our ability to dream and to reimagine. And it's always a fight for us parents and for you guys to make sure that your dreams always stay pure. And so it's not a matter of pushing beyond your limitations or expectations. It's really a matter of protecting your dreams, protecting your imagination. That's really the key. And when you do that, then the world just seems limitless. What I observed a lot in my career is how players study film. Because now it's become like you watch game film, you see what you do right, you see what you do wrong. Okay, let's do more of that, let's do less of that, right? But the way I grew up, from Tex Winter, Phil Jackson, the way film was broken down, it was broken down to the smallest detail. It was broken down to the right angle. It was broken down to foot placement, timing, looking at the posture of a teammate. What could he be thinking? What could he be feeling? Same thing with the opposition. You watch the feed, watch players go into the timeouts, who's talking to who's not talking. You start looking at every little thing. And so watching the game for me would take like 5 hours. And that attention to detail is what's missing. So I felt like if I can put that in a show and have the next generation, these 11-year-old kids, 12-year-old kids, start watching the game at that level, what are they going to be when they're 25? What level would they be at then? It's a passion of mine to get that thing going. Like I said, April 12th will be the first episode. I think it's important for athletes to own what it is that they're going through. It's awareness, right? I think a lot of times we try to tell children, tell young athletes in particular, that if you have those thoughts and those feelings, that's weakness, that's bad, you shouldn't be feeling that, which then causes them to feel some type of way about themselves, right? They carry that around with them for the rest of their lives. And I think the most important thing is for us to be aware of what's going on in here. Not that it's bad, good, or indifferent, but it's awareness. And once you're aware of it, then you can choose to walk hand in hand with it, or you can choose to fight it, but you're making that decision. If you just can constantly bury that in the distance, then it starts festering, and it comes up in different ways. It manifests itself in different ways. So I think it's unbelievable what DeMar and what Kevin are doing, and hope to see more of it. Well, I mean, it was just thinking about how was I going to announce I was going to walk away from the game. And for the most part, as athletes, we tend to think about that in terms of communicating that to the public or to fans. And but I realized I hadn't really had a chance to speak to the game itself, and so I decided that was going to be my focus. And once I had that focus, the words came pretty quickly. I actually wrote 2 drafts within about 30 minutes. And the first one was more confrontational in nature because it felt like the game was trying to tell me you need me, and you can't walk away from this. This is who you are. And so the first tone was more confrontational. It was like, no, I can I can walk away from you. I can do something without you, you know? And then like in every argument, you kind of calm down and you start seeing all the beautiful things that you've learned from the game, which is the second draft that you guys hear now. But I wanted to make sure it was visual. So it's easy to say, tell the game, I love you so much. But instead I wanted to paint a picture with that. So if a kid is rolling his dad's stinky tube socks up, chances are you love the game enough to do that, you know? So it's trying to say things visually. And fortunate enough, Glenn Keane believed in the vision, and John Williams believed in the vision, and turned it into an animated film. After watching that film, I come to understand if I could work that hard every day, with being blessed with the physical tools that I have, what would my career be? And I made a promise to myself from that day that I was going to work that hard every single day, so that when I do retire, I have no regrets. And that was the most important thing for me, is to leave no stone unturned, get better every single day. And if I lived that way, then over time, I'd have something that was beautiful. That was my philosophy. It seems like a pretty simple one, but if you live your life to just get better every single day, you do that for 20 years, and what do you have?
Well, Allen Iverson, who was a phenomenal player with the 76ers, famously ranted about, when asked by a reporter about missing practice. And he just went, practice, we're talking about practice. I mean, it's practice, not a game. I mean, it was classic. He went on for minutes. Yeah. The Iverson approach is not the Kobe Bryant approach. You really focused on practice. Tell us what you brought to practice and how you sort of made that standard for the rest of your team.
Well, I mean, here's why practice was important to me. Not from just the standpoint that I enjoyed playing. Like, I enjoyed being there. I enjoyed getting better. But as a leader of a team, it's also your responsibility to elevate the rest of the guys. And what people tend to get stuck on a lot is saying, okay, the way to make players better is to pass them the ball when they're open. It's a very trivial way to look at it. What you have to do is you have to get them emotionally to want to be better. You have to get them to an emotional space where they wake up every morning driven to be the best version of themselves. Right? How do you do that? And in practice, for me, it was a chance to drive them, to challenge them, right? And this is where you have to know your teammates, because if it's late, we just had a back-to-back, and we had practice the next day, and you show up, and guys don't feel like going through the motions, don't feel like practicing. It's important to know each and every one of them individually, personally, because then you know what nerve to touch. Some guys, it's like, okay, come on, we can do this. That'll get them going. Other guys, no. You got to figure out what button to push. Powell was always Spain. If I tell them how they lost in a gold medal to us and how they're going to lose again, and how I'm going to beat your ass in practice just like I beat you in a gold medal game, he'd hate that. He'd hate that. But that's what practice was. You have to drive them. You absolutely have to. And if practice is more intense and harder than a Game 7 will be, then a Game 7 will be easy. But if it's not, then that's when teams start folding and capitulating.
Graduated from high school, you went directly to the NBA. You were so young, you were 17, that your parents had to sign your first NBA contract.
Yeah.
So,
right.
You're the youngest person not only on the team but in the league. We've got a bunch of graduating students who are probably going to their first full-time job. Do you have any advice for students entering an organization and being the youngest person, not in the room but in the whole company?
Well, I mean, in business it's a little different. I think the best way to prove your value is to work, is to learn, is to absorb, to be a sponge. Right? But you always want to outwork your potential. As hard as you believe you can work harder than that. And that's what I tried to do when I first came in the league. But basketball is such a direct competition sport that me coming in at 17, I hated when my teammates would say, I get hit with an elbow, right? Shaq would hit me with an elbow in practice. Nick Van Exel would come up and say, "Are you okay?" I'm like, motherfucker, what? Mao, are you okay? What the hell's wrong with you? You know, so like I always had that extra chip on my shoulder. So like every day in practice for me was really trying to annihilate everybody that I was playing against. Because I wanted to prove you don't need to babysit me. Like I'm fine, you know? And so it's always that competitive nature, the work ethic, and curiosity. Because I asked a lot of questions. You know, playing with Bryant Scott, I asked him a lot of questions. Eddie Jones, who was great at chasing guards off the screens, and I didn't understand how to do that. I would sit with him before practice, after practice. Magic, James Worthy, Kurt Rambis, Kareem Abdul, all the Laker greats. I would always sit down and just ask them questions about certain games that I studied growing up. What actually happened there? What did you feel there? Why? You know, Bird tough to defend. Why? Because you look slow as shit to me. So like, I'm missing something. So like, tell me what I'm missing. You know what I mean? And so I would always ask questions and try to learn as much as I could.
The owner of the Lakers, Jerry Buss, said it was like watching a miracle happen. And for those of us who watched it on TV or were there, it really was one of those things you just couldn't believe was possible. During the game, did you have to sort of like reset your beliefs? I know Lamar Odom was saying you can't get 60, you can't get 70, or did you just let it flow and whatever happened, or were you really like gunning for numbers?
No, I always dreamed as a kid that it was possible to score 80 or 90 or 100. I always just like had a dream. Like sometimes you lay down in bed and you visualize things. And you just kind of, that's at least how I would go to sleep. Lay down, I'd imagine playing for the Lakers, and I would imagine what the uniforms look like. I would imagine we would be playing, and the smell of the arena and all sorts of stuff. And I would see myself, getting hot, and score 10 straight points. But in a dream, like, why would you ever interrupt that? Like, you're not going to have a dream and be like, okay, then he misses his next 6. Like, it's not going to happen. So you just keep dreaming and dreaming and dreaming, and before I go to sleep, I'm like at 120 points, And so when you grow up, downloading that into your brain over and over and over. And then, that summer, I made 1,000 shots a day. 1,000, right? That's on top of weight training and my conditioning. I made 1,000 shots, and they weren't just shots. It were shots that you saw in that game. They were specific shots. I mean, it was coming out of the corner, going to the pinch post, footwork in the post, coming off the screen. It was very specific. So when you download that into your system and you go out in the court and you're just executing things that you've done thousands of times before, and you have that dream, then that becomes possible.
28 for 46 from the field. This would be 18 for 20 from the line, and an 81-point game. 55 in the second half.
You got to get him out.